Hollywood descended in 1968 to unspoiled forests of northeastern Oregon to produce a spectacular musical western unlike any other audiences had ever seen. The result was chaos and devastation. Rewrites, weather, and personal scandals endangered the production. Lee Marvin Clint Eastwood lived in a much more dramatic story than the one written in script. The film came and went, but Marvin's memories lasted. And near the he finally revealed what happened in the mountains, revealing something many had long suspected. Clint Eastwood was suspected. Chaos created a Hollywood icon. The Lee Marvin was raised amid luxury in New York City. Born February 19, 1924, he was the son of a wealthy advertising executive and a fashion-focused mother writing. Even his name mattered. Parental pride in a distant familia boy named Robert and the other Lee. He made a lifelong choice to honor his roots. Marvin's childhood appeared stable and smooth. Actually, school swiftly changed that perspective. Hennett a remarkable student in grades or behavior. Skipping class, arguing, pushing limits. These were his trademarks before Hollywood signed him. Eventually, doctors labeled him with dyslexia and ADHD, which explained everything. Marvin rarely won learning battles. Still, creativity entered. Took UPA rugged child discovered his creative talent with the violin. To balance things, he built second passion, adrenaline-fueled hunting. One day, he played delicate strings. He was tracking game in the woods the next. As if both Lee Marvins grew at the same period. He never stayed in school. A while later from a communist boarding school in upstate New York, then several college prep expulsions programs, Marvin decided for himself. His world wasn't formal education. Had dropped out of academia. Beyond the classroom, another world was changing. Everything. The year 1942. Global war was spreading, and Marvin made a decision that defined him before cameras. He joined the Marines. He had a brutal and memorable military career. On Saipan, Marvin was pushed right into battle. His unit was devastated by machine gun fire. He survived, but barely. A gunshot burst hit his lower back and buttocks. Serious injuries nearly ended his life. He got the Purple Heart and other military medals for his bravery and sacrifice. Acknowledging his sacrifice and service. His wounds healed in 1945. Marvin was released to return home. American acknowledged him as battle hero. Recognition didn't instantly lead to opportunities. The first job he got was plumber's assistant. A dirty job, dirty task, far from glory. It may have ended there. He might have was always holding a wrench and telling war stories no one in his area understood. However, fate intervened. Strangely, a community theater. An actor was sick one night. Middle P output. With no training, Marvin filled the urgent demand for a replacement. Guts. He performed on stage. That time, he discovered a calling that education and battle couldn't teach or suppress. Acting hooked him instantly. He worked, learned, and played off-Broadway roles across New York State. Proving himself. His perseverance got him to Broadway, where he played in Mr. Bud. It was tiny but indicative of his rise. Soon, the next step was apparent. Hollywood, California, a larger venue. Expectations. Marvin arrived in 1950 eager to fight again. Competition and casting lists. What distinguished him was something no acting class had could offer. Actual battle. His directors trusted him. Actors learned from him. Productions relied on him. If a weapon or scene requires authenticity, Lee Marvin was the man to ask for corrective action. His cinematic debut, the 1951 film You're in the Navy, now introduced Bronson to the world. It was mostly shot in Virginia by Marvin. And when it got to Hollywood, he didn't return east. He stayed. That choice cemented him in the industry he sought. His next job was a small role in Teresa. Small he wasn't acknowledged. But it didn't matter. He provided real inside troops info others couldn't fabricate. His fame spread, first quietly, then swiftly. Suddenly, momentum grew. The explosion headed for fame. 1952 gave Lee Marvin more than a push. Pushed it forward. He made 5 films and some TV appearances in 1 year, still caused trouble off-screen. He wasn't even in the forefront yet. Most of his in the credits. He was background rather than billboard. His personal life was the focus. Marvin married Betty quickly in Las Vegas between filming and auditions. Ealing was Joan Crawford's nanny. Before long, they raised 1 son and 3 girls. Suddenly, he wasn't just a struggling actor, he provided for others. Acting was no longer a fantasy. They survived. He worked like a man who knew. Marvin tried harder the following year, appearing in 7 films. One was notable for very literal reason. A 3D Western was new at the time. Lee Marvin lunging out of the screen with a weapon at their faces surprised onlookers. If that moment cemented his name in their minds. He hadn't found his place yet. Hollywood wasn't sure who Lee Marvin was. But the tough guy was drawn to roles. His only challenge was proving his ownership. Wild One had that chance. Only one issue existed. Marvin unfit for motorcycling. The fact that Marlon Brando could effortlessly added pressure. Instead of retreating, Marvin worked hard, learned to bike, and became competent enough to race. That film gave him more than a role. It identified him. Then he wasn't simply portraying bad guys. He personified them. Hollywood took note. Later that year, he joined Fritz Lang's The Big Heat's most terrifying villain of the decade. His character tossed hot coffee at Gloria Graham, horrifying viewers. That scene was horrible, memorable, terrifyingly convincing. People wondered if Marvin was deadly off-screen. And he was. In 1954, Marvin starred in Gorilla at Large. Campy 3D thriller, where he met Anne Braftoft. Behind the scenes, he secretly had an affair with her away from his wife and kids. They hid their friendship even when they reconnected on a precarious existence. His home life was falling apart, while he felt stuck in his career despite all the films. Television saved him in 1957. The first time Marvin played the Chicago M Squad Detective Lieutenant Frank Ballinger is a hero. It lasted 117 episodes and gave him the attention he wanted. The finale didn't bring him success. Instead, Hollywood remained silent. He was unemployed for a year. Depression took over, and his life became perilous. But the tale went on. John Wayne, Western legend, saw Marvin's performances as genuine. In 1961, he recruited him into the Comancheros, enabling a second partnership. This time on classic, The Liberty Valance Shooter. Marvin played the title's murderous outlaw, joining Wayne and James Stewart in scenes. 3 titans in known frame. Marvin was no longer the tiniest. Then 1964, The Killers. Finally, his name topped the credits. After Lee Marvin played his first leading part after years of portraying thugs, heavies, and nameless shadows. This was a launch, not a steady rise. Then, his career didn't simply raise, it took off. Lee Marvin stood on a film set in 1965. A big ocean liner-like set. Shot ship of fool's drama. Already in his life, Marvin had a reputation as an experienced drinker. Unfortunately, or his co-star could match him perfectly, depending on your perspective. That co-star was Vivien Leigh. The same Vivien Leigh who enchanted the world in Gone with the Wind. But this was later in her life. A depressed one. Alcoholism is rising. Since they were made of comparable material, what happened next makes sense, that even more ironic. During filming, Leigh reported that Marvin had drinker's breath in their scenarios. It set up a difficult start. There was someone else on set who liked Marvin better. Michelle Triola. He was immediately drawn to club dancer and singer with a tiny film role. The attraction didn't simmer slowly. It erupted quickly. In weeks, Marvin packed up and left. Lived with her. After meeting him, Triola stated everything changed. She was right. Road ahead would bring equal parts exhilaration, upheaval, and sadness. But before that heartbreak, everything changed. Unexpected turn. Marvin and Triola befriended Vivien Leigh. Near enough that she welcomed them to her English home. Marvin was not the best house visitor. One night during a pleasant card game, he snapped the deck in half out of frustration. And they were pricey. Cards. They were vintage. Triola waited for Leigh to burst, holding her breath. Her surprise. Leigh was charmed. Marvin's flaws appealed to her. That rustic charm worked. Leigh, but it wouldn't help his next set. Earlier that year, Marvin shot the Western comedy Cat Bellaloo, which fit his boisterous, large attitude. Most of the cast thought his drinking helped the performance by relaxing him and feeding into it. Comedy. Jane Fonda, the film's star, disagreed. She kept her the air between them is getting cooler. The breaking point. Her fiancé Roger Vadim visited the set. Marvin had been clearly drinking, and when he met Vadim, he shouted his French hatred. Without pause, he praised Vadim for being half Russian, then claimed to despise Russians. It was that disarray disguised as bravery. Filming Cat Bellaloo was important to Jane Fonda. She blamed Marvin for her misery. Not even Fonda foresaw fate's bombshell. In Cat Bellaloo, Marvin played 2 unique personas, stretching himself as a performance like never before. The Academy noticed. When awards season began, Lee Marvin won the Best Actor Oscar. He defeated Rod Steiger, Laurence Olivier, and Richard Burton. Many expected giants to overshadow him. But on that night, they accommodated Marvin. Oscar was more than a trophy. This was fuel. Career of Marvin skyrocketed. His pay increased. Fame exploded, but his attitude, that stayed the same. That stubbornness became more apparent when filming The Professionals. Marvin's confrontation with co-star Burt Lancaster was so intense the director concerned Lancaster might throw Marvin off a mountain. The root cause remained. Lack of control, excessive drinking. Things escalated when point blank came. John Vernon didn't look right to Marvin, strong enough to compete with him on screen. Marvin used his sole method to test him. He punched him hard to stomach. Vernon was justified in his rage. Still, the outburst Marvin's goal was achieved. Vernon returned with role-appropriate intensity. In his current life, Lee Marvin didn't just throw weight about. He swung physically, professionally, financially. Everyone was watching where he'd go with that momentum. Price of fame and fortune. Cat Bellalew may not be the first film people think of when discussing Lee Marvin. 1967's The Dirty Dozen is unavoidable. That flick wasn't simply one hit. His career was defined by it. Marvin became the tough captain of mismatched warriors alongside Charles Bronson, John Cleese, and Donald Sutherland. The Dirty Dozen was the peak, and everything after faltered. Some roles were good, while others slipped through his grasp, haunting his legacy. Just 2 years ago, one of the biggest mistakes later. Sam Peckinpah was creating a new Western in 1969, Wild Bunch's violent, savage insurrection. With The Dirty Dozen still hot, Peckinpah marked Lee Marvin as his preferred choice. Critics buzzed, Hollywood watched, and everything pointed to another major part. But there was one issue. Money. Marvin liked the script, but the salary wasn't enough for a new star. Just when he seemed ready to sign, another offer came. A musical Western. Ad for a gravel-voiced battle hero. Except this one had an unbeatable pay. Marvin changed gears, polished up enough voice work, and left the Wild Bunch. History wasn't nice to that decision. The Wild Bunch was a masterpiece, listed in the National Film Registry, Best Thrillers and Films from the American Film Institute. Instead, Marvin watched Paint Your Wagon struggled through the box office and is now a Simpsons joke. The musical wasn't a complete disaster for him. On set, Marvin drank heavy, more than usual, many said, but it helped him. Certainly not a trained singer, though harsh, his voice brought Wandering Star to life, earning him a gold record. It was that weird twist. Hollywood's toughest guy unexpectedly scored a hit, but booze rarely helped things for him long-term. While filming Monty Walsh in 1970, director William A. Franker ultimately forbade Marvin from drinking. Not a cure, but mitigation. Castmate Mitchell Ryan struggled with his demons during production. As Frarier prepared to fire him, Marvin saved Ryan's job with his weight and reputation. Even in Pandemonium, his loyalty shone. Work kept flowing, but not the quality. Another sliding door moment followed. In 1972, John Boorman envisioned a suspenseful backwoods thriller starring Lee Marvin and Marlon Brando, titled Deliverance. Marvin declined, saying he and Brando were too busy. Old. Boorman recast the movie with younger performers, resulting in a blockbuster hit that catapulted Jon Voight and Burt Reynolds to fame. Marvin rejected another great before it reached him. Although his work decisions failed, a more complex issue arose at home. Though never married, Marvin lived with singer Michelle Triola for years. Triola had her own talent and recorded an album. Instead of pursuing her aspirations, she accompanied Marvin across countries, maintained their home, and awaited his relationship announcement. He never did. By pausing her life for him, she suffered greatly. Marvin's dismissive behavior can be explained by looking back to 1945. When Marvin was 21, he was associated with Pamela Filiali, a pregnant 17-year-old girl. Marvin had an unlawful abortion. After nearly dying, Marvin vanished with a simple promise. He would only be absent for the summer. He never returned. However, Filiali remained in his thoughts. After 25 years, Marvin returned to his hometown, discovered Triola's house, entered her kitchen, and informed her he had returned for her. Feeling overwhelmed, welcomed him. One major issue remained. Triola awaits marriage in California. Triola legally changed her surname to Marvin after being with him since 1965. She considered herself his wife. Triola remained resilient when Marvin chose to marry Filili instead. Lawyered up. Marvin Against Marvin, a famous court struggle in Hollywood, was based on this. Triola claimed she were his wife and demanded financial compensation accordingly. The speaker revealed that she fell pregnant 3 times during their relationship. Marvin paid for 2 terminations and 1 miscarriage. These surgeries prevented her from having children. She also said she sacrificed her job for him. She used Marvin's statements from their early connection as the ultimate blow. I have what you have and you have mine. It was unclear. Very emotional. Is it binding legally? It is up to the court to determine. Upon verdict, both parties claimed triumph. Triola received $14,000 tax-free, a significant amount, but not the $3.6 million she sought. Her award symbolized victory. Marvin praised the judgment, warning single ladies not to expect large benefits from non-married relationships. Tom would partially confirm him. The spectacle led to their permanent separation. After meeting Dick Van Dijk, Triola remained with him for over 30 years, never marrying him. A strange echo. 2 lengthy relationships, neither sealed at the altar. Lee Marvin left the courtroom, married Pamela Filili, and returned to his preferred world: film sets, late nights, and heavy drinking. Upon entering the Big Red One set in 1980, Lee Marvin set the tone in an unexpected way. He remained silent, no welcome, no nod, nothing. The cast felt every moment of quiet. Marvin finally spoke with his co-stars, Robert Carradine, Mark Hamill, and Bobby Dico, on a vehicle journey. He casually asked which one was Carradine, looking around. Marvin struck Carradine with a single harsh verbal blow when he lifted his hand. Simply that, no explanation or follow-up. It left everyone wondering what was in his thoughts. A few years later, Marvin's body began to pay for decades of heavy drinking. In 1983, he arrived on set in such poor condition for Michael Apted's Gorky Park, halting production. He was taken to the hospital. At this point, the story took a unique turn in Hollywood. At Marvin's hospital bedside, director Michael Apted rehearsed the script with him. Keeping the movie rolling required a unique blend of expertise, commitment, and desperation. His next project involved a tiny miracle. He remained sober throughout the shoot. In 1984's Dog Day, Marvin played his final leading role. The director claimed he remained clean throughout. Once filming ended, Marvin resumed his usual behaviors. He unexpectedly punched a police officer while inebriated. After feeling guilty, he attended the hospital and brought flowers to the injured cop. It was typical Marvin: wild, apologetic, and unexpected. The years were weighing him down. Too many strikes had caused his physique to age faster than expected. When he joined the Dirty Dozen for the mid-1980s mission, that became painfully clear. The 1967 film's sequel was planned to take place just months later, but it really took almost 2 decades to occur. People initially thought he looked too elderly for the role. Making a sequel 20 years later showed how much he evolved. He made his last on-screen appearance in the Delta Force with Chuck Norris. It may have been better to forego that one in retrospect. He appeared exhausted and older than his years. Being told he was too old for certain parts was one thing. Realizing it was different. Behind the scenes, his health was deteriorating. Doctors diagnosed a highly irritated colon when his stomach ache became excruciating. The body was giving out. He returned to the hospital in December 1986 for a colectomy to alleviate pain. It didn't. Shortly after surgery, he died of a heart attack at 63 years old. Before his death, Lee Marvin revealed our suspicions about Clint Eastwood. In 1968, Hollywood tried a costly musical western called Paint Your Wagon in a remote area in northeastern Oregon, deep within the Wallowa-Whitman National Forest. One of the worst cinematic failures ever ensued. A production that experienced upheaval, heartbreak, financial overruns, and a film that fell short of its potential. A fictional story set during the California Gold Rush was shown on television. Built from nothing in the forest, Nome City becomes a thriving mining town where gold dust leads to greed and optimism. Marvin played Ben Rumson, rugged, boisterous, and famous for drinking, while Clint Eastwood played a quiet, lucky partner who brings them prosperity. Miners, money, vice, and music fill the town, but it collapses when tunnels under the buildings collapse. a dramatic, wild, and symbolic representation of the real production. Before celluloid chaos, Paint Your Wagon was successful. The 1951 theater musical by Alan J. Lerner and Frederick Lowe was a success. These individuals created Brigadoon and My Fair Lady, musical theater classics. To compete with Mary Poppins and My Fair Lady, Paramount, controlled by G and Western, sought to make a blockbuster film adaptation. Money flooded in. Lee Marvin received $1 million and a profit share. Eastwood had a similar deal. This film was intended to be significant. Lerner produced, while Joshua Logan, director of Camelot and South Pacific, directed. However, the mountain version differed from the Broadway plot fans recalled. In order to appeal to the 1960s counterculture, screenwriter Patty Chalky substantially altered the original script, altering characters and plot lines. Instead of Marvin or Eastwood, Jean Saburg played Elizabeth, a woman married to them in a bold, unique, and possibly current or misguided tale. Finding a filming location was dramatic too. According to production designer John Truscott, the movie required a stunning backdrop, which the Eagle Creek Valley provided. The problem was its near inaccessibility. Getting to set took 2 hours on rural roads. The answer was costly yet straightforward. Helicopters. In collaboration with Oregon's governor, Tom McCall, who established a film office to promote the shoot, Hollywood took control. Their construction was impressive. No Name City was a full-scale village with handcrafted structures on hydraulic lifts for thrilling set collapses during the conclusion. Underground tunnels were built to collapse. It took 7 months and cost $2.4 million to build. Governor McCall personally cut the opening ribbon. Baker, Oregon had never seen anything like it. Around 400 cast and crew members filled every hotel room in town. Paramount spends thousands monthly feeding people. Filming began June 24, 1968. But reality unraveled quickly. Lerner continually overruled director Logan. Lee Marvin was a known heavy drinker and belligerent individual. Offset, Clint Eastwood and Jean Seaborg's affair shattered the production. Seaborg loved Eastwood totally. She said she would leave Roma Gary, an author, for him. Gary behaved like a tragic romance character. He challenged Eastwood to fight. The duel never occurred, but emotional turmoil did. Seaborg informed her publicist of her intention to divorce, expecting Eastwood to return her love. He was seeing another woman on set, an extra he directly hired. She was unaware. The extra later revealed their 2-year romance and said Seaborg was oblivious. Once filming ended and the cast returned to Los Angeles, Eastwood disappeared from Seaborg's life. Abandonment devastated her. She imagined she was loved. Instead, she was alone. Filming was exhausting. Hundreds of local extras earned $20 a day until they threatened a $25 strike. Even a senator from Oregon made a horseback cameo in costume. Logan's schedule was rigorous. We were taken in by helicopter before dawn, directed until dusk, and returned to sleep before repeating the process. He later remarked that he only hoped it would end eventually. Nature joined the sabotage. The initial days saw heat waves with temperatures over 100 degrees. The region experienced its first August rain in 35 years, halting production for over a month. It was followed by October snow. Ultimately, they had to leave Oregon and continue filming in Hollywood. Early December saw the end of filming. The post-production process was unclean. Logan lost the right to do his own director's cut, and Lerner recut the film himself. The MPAA gave the movie its first M rating for its 166-minute runtime. Before public release, 30 minutes were cut. Paint Your Wagon premiered in New York on October 15, 1969, and was later screened in Portland with Governor McCall in attendance. Criticism was harsh. According to Rex Reed, it was a monument to unmatched incompetence. Roger Ebert couldn't speak sarcastically. He described the film as a huge burden in his head. Public opinion wasn't nice. Paramount claimed earnings of $14 million, although the project cost at least $20 million. Clint Eastwood later acknowledged the straightforwardness of the situation. Lot of money, little movie. Eastwood's involvement is a unique narrative. After tackling harsh Western parts, he joined Paint Your Wagon, a gritty musical featuring an interracial romance, expecting a groundbreaking experience. That was the pitch. That was his preferred version. He was young, ambitious, and adventuresome. Since his father was a singer, Eastwood believed that talent may run in the family. He committed to a vision that collapsed swiftly, like the tunnels under Gnome City. Scripts altered. The romance plot was removed. Grit vanished. The final product was a bright, glossy Hollywood musical that did not fit his image. Watching the final cut nearly shattered him. He then admitted to feeling humiliated and contemplated leaving acting. Retrospectively, Paint Your Wagon is a valuable lesson on film. It was supposed to be brave and new. It became a warning about unfocused ambition. This huge production was sabotaged by weather, ego, heartbreak, and a story that lacked direction. Millionaire Singer Off Key. A costly set that collapsed.